Hey guys. I'm literally finishing my dinner right now. Okay. Oh my god, I can't see anything. All right. Welcome aboard. Nobody, because there's nobody here.
Wonderful.
We're gonna talk at nobody. It's fine. You'll watch it later. It's fine. Welcome to Truer Detectives, a show where we detect the undetectable that some detectives missed while they were detecting on season 4 of True Detective, entitled True Detective Night Country. Do you ever think you'd say detective so much? I didn't, but I do. Anyway. Oh, my mic is turned. Okay. So we're on episode 4 or part 4, whatever you want to call it, of True Detective Night Country. And one, it did not end with a scream this episode.
Oh, it didn't, right?
It didn't.
Yeah.
I looked out for it. It did not. So that answers that question. Or was that even a question? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, couple things I want to talk about. First off, hold on. Let me pull up my my notes here. Part 4, directed again by Issa Lopez, because Issa Lopez is the RT of the season. Written by Namsi Khan, Chris Mundy, and Issa Lopez. Now, this is the first episode not written, like the main writing credit isn't given to Issa Lopez.
Okay.
The first episode. The 5th episode is the same. There are other people, and then Issa Lopez is listed as the last. And then the 6th part hasn't been announced. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm so sorry, you guys. Just eating it. I'm like trying to get my life together now. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is this upcoming Sunday is the Super Bowl. You may know that.
Oh, yes.
You may know that. And as a result, I'm quoting this from opposite_Carpenter85, who is OP on a post on Reddit, because that's where I saw this. I'm sure I could have found it elsewhere, but this is where I found it. The 5th episode of True Detective Night Country will be available to stream early on Max beginning February 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, in order to avoid the Sunday night steamroller that is the Super Bowl. The show will still get its HBO linear premiere on February 11th at 9 p.m. opposite the big game. Someone then brought up in the comments, same thing happened last year with The Last of Us. It just makes sense. It did happen last year with The Last of Us. I remember being able to watch it earlier than the other episodes. So that does just make sense, because otherwise your numbers are probably going to be really bad, or people just won't watch it. And they'll catch it on an alternate viewing, because, as you know, premium cable channels always end up airing their own original properties, numerous times in the week. All right. So, wanted to get that out of the way. Now, here's something. This came up last week when we were talking about who was in the episode, like who was starring in it. And I was like, wait, I don't think we saw this character yet, is what I said when I saw a name. We had. It's who I thought it was, actually, when I went back and thought about it. Okay. So in the cast is one Christopher Eccleston. I don't know if you know that name, but he was the reboot of Doctor Who, the 9th Doctor or whatever. 9th, right? Yeah, 9th. The 9th Doctor, when they did the reboot in the early aughts, before David Tennant. That first season with Rose, what is her name? That's gonna bother me. Anyway, so one, he's got an amazing American accent. It was really well done. So well done, in fact, that even after I knew it was him, I was still listening and like there was nothing overwhelmingly unusual about it. He maybe is a little more lilty, but based on where they are in the United States, slash, technically they're in the upper North America, so actually closer to Canada, having a lilty type accent is actually really common. I know sometimes when you hear people who are Canadian, there is something like lilty and vaguely reminiscent of the United Kingdom in some way
Mhm.
because there's such a heavy link between not only France for a lot of Canada, but also very heavily influenced by British culture because of the whole, being run by the Queen and whatnot.
Mhm.
So just thought that was interesting, and I hadn't put it together yet, and that was very exciting. Anyway, who is he, you might ask? Because like I don't see that guy. I know what the Ninth Doctor looks like, and that he's not in there. Isn't the Ninth Doctor? This is really gonna bother me if I'm wrong. I'm so sorry if I'm wrong. I like Doctor Who, but like I don't like love Doctor Who. You know what I mean? Like I'm not one of those people that's like I'm gonna go to Doctor Who conventions. I'm just not that person. Sorry. Maybe if someone paid for it.
I like Torchwood.
Torchwood was bomb, dude. John Barrowman. Okay. Anyway, it's just John Barrowman. That's it. End of story. Um, Not really. His sister actually worked at Alverno College, which I lived in Milwaukee for a time period, and Alverno College is a women's college in Milwaukee, and so I owned a book. It was like philosophy of Doctor Who, and it had a lot to do with like women's perspective on Doctor Who because was like an old man and a young girl and like it's a whole thing and had like such a precedent in being a specific way. And yeah, so John Barrowman's sister wrote an article for that book. And it talked all about how when he and she were young that they really loved Doctor Who, and so when he got that job it was like so exciting for the both of them, which I just love that little story. Anyway, so there is a Doctor Who relation here. It's the chief. Not Hank, but the guy who comes in from out of town and tells them they're moving everything to Anchorage.
Mhm.
It's him.
The guy I don't like. That's hilarious.
The guy who whitens his teeth. That guy. So I don't know, that was a fun little connection.
Mhm.
Nothing extreme here, but just a fun little connection. Hello to our one viewer. It's probably Takeerah with her computer up. Anyway. Okay,
Wait, do
so
I have it?
I don't even have it up right now.
Oh, no, I
Um
don't.
so okay, so I have two articles that I was interested in sharing. I don't know if I'm going to read this one. It's okay. The other one I am interested in reading, so we are going to go through some articles really quickly. So, couple things. We're going to touch on these articles. We're going to talk about the official podcast companion piece, and then we'll just talk about the episode a little bit. So, let's just get right into it. This article is from Daily Beast's Obsessed, and it's called The Surprising Horniness of Jodie Foster's True Detective, written by Emma Fraser. Just thought it was interesting. Um, Direct quote from the show: "Is there anyone in this town you haven't banged?" asked Trooper Evangeline Navarro in the most recent episode of True Detective Night Country. It is a ballad response as Chief Liz Danvers, Jodie Foster, sheepishly tries to hiding behind Navarro when the pair is knocking on a woman's door on Christmas Eve. No, it isn't because the police are making a holiday call to ask for information to help with a murder investigation. Instead, Danvers' off-duty exploits are behind the potentially awkward information, and Navarro can't quite believe it. Again, she's talking to the teacher, who's like rocking a hot bod, you know what I mean? Like, fine, but he's married. Not all of Danvers sexploits in the series trigger angry spouses. Still, True Detective is properly taking the crown for horniest HBO Sunday night show, succeeding the previous reigning champ, White Lotus.
Wow.
Also,
Okay.
for the record, this doesn't always equate to good sex, as showrunner Issa Lopez doesn't shy away from the awkwardness that accompanies a quick shag with a familiar partner. I'm not going to read beyond that. Check it out if you're interested. I just thought it was funny. It has been, there are surprisingly a lot of sex scenes. It is on HBO, so do with that what you will. All right, Forbes released an article by Eric Kahn, who's a senior contributor, entitled True Detective Night Country is one of the most disappointing mystery shows ever made. Just thought this was worth a read. This was published on February 5th, so 2 days ago in the morning, or updated at that time. Here we go. True Detective Night Country is one of the worst mystery shows I've ever seen. This is not me, this is Eric Kahn. I'm struggling to think of another detective series that I despised as much as I despised this one in the end. This is rough, dude. Season 2 was a disappointing follow-up to the first season of True Detective, but this doesn't even feel like the same show, despite its many attempts to convince us otherwise. I will say, to be fair, True Detective Night Country could have easily been written as something completely different, and you wouldn't even know. That's the risk you run, though, when you run an anthology show. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It just is what it is. Note, the following review is based on all 6 episodes of HBO's new crime drama. It is spoiler-free, other than some remarks about its setting and characters, which we already know all that. I write recap reviews of each episode as they air. You can find links below. Anyway. When Night Country first aired, I wanted to watch one episode at a time alongside viewers, despite having access to all 6 episodes ahead of time. I've done this with a number of shows because it keeps me on the same page as audiences. Props to you, dude. Seriously. Because one, once you get screeners, it's like super easy to take advantage of the fact that you have extra time
Mm-hmm.
to like prep for your articles, as a podcast, like prep for your podcast recording, record early, all those
Mm-hmm.
kind of things. However, it can make it really hard to communicate with your listeners because you have to be like really cognizant of what happened in
Yeah.
what episode. So, so props to Eric Kahn for that. That's good call, dude. Um, All right. I've done this with a number of shows. Okay, yep. I can guess along with everyone else, make predictions along with everyone else, and so forth. It's fun a lot of the time, especially with mysteries, and it allows me to write about each episode from that perspective, still uncertain of what's coming. Great. Great philosophy. I gave up after episode 3 of Night Country and watched the next 3 episodes for one simple reason. I wasn't enjoying the show enough to care about what happened that much, and I wanted to know if it got better. Was there a satisfying payoff at the end that made the slog I endured so far worthwhile? Would the various mysterious clues and character threads come together in the end for a satisfying conclusion? Unfortunately, I can safely answer these questions with a resounding no. If anything, Night Country gets worse in its second half. The show has an identity crisis, straddling the line between its origin as its own mystery and HBO's decision to shoehorn it into the True Detective franchise. The mystery itself hardly feels like a mystery at all, with no sense of organic urgency or even a coherent investigation. The messy plot is bogged down in dreary, tedious exposition and repetitive dialogue. Pacing is all over the place. Every time something exciting or interesting happens, the show slams on its brakes, devolving into yet another tedious conversation or leaping to a new scene in the most jarring way possible. The fantastic setting cannot save this dismal story from itself. See, this is where I start to disagree with him. Occasionally, in various desperate acts of fan service, a line from season 1 is jammed in where it doesn't belong. One season 1 callback in particular during the season finale made me laugh out loud in dismay. I may or may not have shouted at my TV. None of the characters are particularly likable. I disagree with that also. That's
Yeah.
a big problem, though it could have been a tolerable one if the story they inhabited was compelling enough to make such miserable people watchable. Shows like White Lotus, dude, why it's like everybody's referencing White Lotus. It's like the only thing that HBO has apparently. Managed this delicate balancing act with style. Not so in Night Country. Jodie Foster's Liz Danvers has barely a single redeeming quality. I don't find that to be true either. And her partner, Detective Navarro, is not her partner, is just as
Right.
hard to stomach. You can get away with having a detective be this awful of a human being only if they make up for it with Perot like intellect. Which I don't know if have you ever watched the Perot movies?
No.
Like um shoot, it's like oh, this is really gonna bother me. Like Death on the Nile, Orient Express. They're like murder mystery movies. You would really like them. They're really
Hmm.
well done. Travis and I watched all of them that have come out. They're pretty great. Neither Danvers nor or Navarro possess much in the way of little gray cells, however. Oh wow, dude. He called him smooth brained. In the end, I felt nothing but disdain and disgust for both characters. Dang, dude. Whose actions in the season finale are beyond the pale. The creators of the show don't seem to think so. They want us to connect with these detectives and the choices they make. Unfortunately, it's never earned. Neither is the show's utterly predictable, wholly unsatisfying ending or laundry list of cliches. Though, if you like a good dose of cloying preachiness, this might just be the show for you. Dang, dude is eviscerating the show right now. The ingredients of Night Country make for a sad list: predictable, boring, unpleasant, preachy, and derivative. Toss in a dash of bad CGI. Amen to that. And some atrociously mediocre cinematography. I don't mediocre. Oh my gosh, mediocre cinematography. I disagree with that. Not to mention all the lame needle drops, and you're left with something that barely resembles True Detective. The final episode feels less like the franchise's it ostensibly is a part of, and more like a cheap knockoff of the film it cribs from so brazenly, which I suspect I suspected it might from my very first episodic review, which it links to it. I finished watching Deadlock, like a Scottish lock, on Amazon Prime Video earlier this week. The parallels between the two shows are astonishing. Both are loosely rooted in the Nordic noir tradition. Both take place in exotic small towns far from the big city, Ennis, Alaska, and Deadlock, Tasmania, respectively. Both have a pair of female detectives investigating the murders of men, and both have overbearing male police bosses who threaten to interfere. Each mystery involves missing tongues, believe it or not. Wow, that's odd. What are the odds of that? Deadlock is a story with characters you care about, a crude but charming sense of humor, and a coherent mystery with actual suspects that keep you guessing right up to the end. Night Country can barely keep track of its messy, sprawling cast, let alone whatever case it is the detectives are trying to solve. I predicted the ending, or at least most of the ending, in the season premiere. The only surprising thing about the show is how obvious it is. But please, by all means, keep watching. I'll be reviewing each episode as we go, and I'd love to chat with you about it week to week. I suspect even the show's staunchest defenders may be disappointed in the end, no matter what your theory may be. And there are many. I can't see how this show's conclusion pays off in any kind of satisfying way. Then again, maybe I'm just asking the wrong bleeping questions. Update. Okay, here's the update. Another thing I wanted to comment on was how, in each episode, the same exact story beats are repeated over and over again. There will be some spoilers for episodes 1 through 4 in this portion. Okay, but we've already watched those. But no spoilers for
Mhm.
the last 2 episodes, except to say that these repetitive issues continue throughout. I've seen a lot of comments from people saying they'll really have to ramp things up and hurry the last 2 episodes. But the fact of the matter is, the format largely stays the same, with a lot of the same pacing problems plaguing every episode of the season. In any case, here are a few of the things Night Country seems hellbent on showing us every single episode. 1. Hiding the information. This is done in various ways and frequently. In the flashback up to the domestic abuse scene, we see Danvers and Navarro arrive and the bad guy is alive. They don't show us what happens. They keep dragging it out like a drip feed. Both the Annie phone video and the Lund hospital scene include moments where they're just about to reveal important information but then die. On TV tropes, this is referred to as the his name is trope. This all has also happened in various conversations where one character about to tell the other something is cut off by the other who, unlike audiences, doesn't want to hear it. 2. Every episode has also included a scene where characters repeat the same interactions. Navarro shows up and offers support to Julia. Navarro shows up and treats Kavik badly, but he takes it like a doormat. Danvers treats Peter like crap, but he takes it because she's his boss. Peter and Kayla have a tense interaction because Kayla is a wet blanket wife trope. Some kind of supernatural event transpires, making us wonder if there's actually paranormal stuff going on or if it's all just in their heads. A forced conflict between Danvers and Leah or Danvers and Navarro, where the same issues are brought up ad nauseum. Danvers does detective work. That's basically just her looking at pictures, listening to something, or rifling through documents to look busy. Hank does something to remind us he's a crappy person. The list goes on. These things don't just happen in one episode and then grow into something else. They're repeated over and over again. 3. Heavy-handed symbols. There was quite a bit of symbol usage, which, let's note, is different than symbolism, in season 1. But the little stick devil's nests were used in a way that made them ominous clues, effectively making us question and dread their meaning. They were rare, and they always meant the detectives were getting warmer. In Night Country, we have the spiral symbol from season 1, but also oranges, polar bears, both CGI and stuffed animal versions, the color blue, etc. 4. Needle drops. In past seasons, the score would fit the mood of the scene. In this season, we get needle drops to tell us how to feel. In episode 4, they used Billie Eilish's song Everybody Dies to set the mood for Julia's suicide. I mean, why? This reminds me of Fargo's recent season when they used the cover of Toxic to remind us that John Hamm's character was a caricature of toxic masculinity. It's master of the obvious levels of stupid. Quit treating audiences like children. P.S. Eilish is very talented, and I have nothing against her, but she's not the right pick for the opening credits either. Strong disagree, sir. Strongly disagree. I think that Billie Eilish song for the opening credits is bomb.
I love it. Yeah.
I will sit through the credits because I like it.
I was so shocked when I heard, like, because I know the song so well, and I heard it coming on. I was like, I'm like, what a
So
genius
that's really
idea.
interesting because you know it and you like it. I don't listen to Billie Eilish at all.
Oh.
And I felt like this song was interesting enough that I actually enjoy listening to it every time it plays.
Mhm.
I won't listen to it outside of this, but I enjoy it this way.
Mhm.
Nothing moves forward. The case has barely progressed. Only a few days have passed as opposed to decades in previous seasons. No character growth, no deeper understanding of any of the mysteries. This isn't just a poorly paced slog, it's a tedious nightmare, where the story itself seems as frozen as that corpsicle in the hockey rink. What a mess. Wow. Now there are comments, several of them. There's 70. Um it's interesting. Like he brings up really good points, like really good points. Um but there are some things I don't agree with. Like I like Navarro as a character. And I think that I mean, we haven't gotten to the end and obviously he has. So maybe I'll change my tune at the end of this, but
Mhm.
I like Navarro. I think she's likable. I think she's
Yep, I do too.
self-sabotaging,
Mhm.
but I think as someone who has suffered with mental health issues, I find something really compelling about her character and I connect with her in that way, I suppose. So this idea of like her feeling cursed, which is what she brings up in this most recent episode, right? So like Julia kills herself. Okay. And then Navarro states that Julia had this curse that she's now passed on to Navarro, essentially. And
Right.
that Navarro is now going to have this curse. And it means that something is going to be calling her to just walk away from everything. That's really interesting to me as a concept. Like this concept of feeling cursed and like things genetically being predisposed to you
Mhm.
is very true in mental health. So, if we're looking at this from like a mental health perspective, I think it's really interesting to think that because yeah, when you have something and your parents maybe have it or your grandparents have it or someone else in your family has it and you also have it, there is this feeling of like why do you have to carry on this burden of their legacy?
Right.
And it's not intentional, right? They didn't leave it to you on purpose. Nobody wants you to feel that way. And you and I just had a conversation recently to hear about like who better to parent someone who's going to struggle with those things than the person who already has struggled with them.
Yep.
Now, the key is being mentally stable and well when that happens, right? Now, that's not always the case, as we know. Clearly, it's not the case in Navarro's story. Her mother was not mentally well. Um, I think it's interesting that we start to see what's going to call to her then in this episode as well. But I really hope that she fights against it because she does fight against everything. She's got like, what is it? Is it oppositional defiance disorder? Do you know what I'm talking
Yes.
about? Like, you're
Yeah.
going to do the opposite of what someone tells you
Right.
just because
Yeah.
they told you to do it. It's almost to that degree. And so I would hope that because of that, she would be able to fundamentally kick against this concept of this curse.
Mhm.
All right. Before we move on to talking about the episode more in depth, there's one other thing that I wanted to bring up. I did listen to the official companion podcast today for specifically this episode. I was interested to see what would be said and if there was anything in particular that would be shared about this episode, if it was like behind the scenes information or were the actors going to speak on some of the pieces or would they mention things that maybe I had missed. And I will say this. It's not a bad podcast. It's not a bad podcast. It's a good podcast if you know what you're getting into. And if you're looking to listen for information on True Detective Night Country, you're not going to receive a ton of that. It's got
Mhm.
some really cool aspects, some really cool segments. So I think it's worth a listen if you're interested in more lore and like traditional information from the I'm going to butcher the tribe name. I'm not going to be able to say it fast.
Oh.
Inupiaq. But it's like Inupiaq. Inupiaq. That's how they say it. They say it like really fast. Um, I think it's worth a listen then because there's a lot of really cool pieces of information that come out of that. However, in terms of like actual evaluation of the episode, there's not much of it. Issa Lopez comes on. She does talk a little bit about how the mysticism that comes with her heritage. She's Mexican. Just the mysticism that comes with her heritage is really where she kind of got the idea for a lot of the things in this season. Mysticism is so heavily steeped in her culture, she says, and so as a result, that's why she wanted to have kind of that mysticism appear in these episodes, which is interesting to say the least.
Mhm.
Um, Jodie Foster does make a brief appearance. Honestly, it sounds like they're cut from a larger interview, the segments. Um, so Jodie Foster does state some things about Danvers. Honestly, I don't even remember, so that just goes to show how memorable that was. And then Kali Rice does talk about Navarro, but predominantly she just talks about the fact that Julia is the glue that holds Navarro together. Which obviously, if you watch the episode, you know that that's the case. She goes absolutely mental after Julia passes. So there's that. The only other interesting piece that I thought would bring up is that the cinematographer was actually on. And he did talk about the way that he decided to shoot the season. And he decided that the scenes in light needed to be like overwhelmingly bright and that the seasons in the dark the scenes in the dark should be overwhelmingly dark. And I think he did kind of nail that. I really do love the spotlight feature that they do in the dark.
Mhm.
You know, when they're out on the ice and they do kind of like that spotlight
Yeah.
light on the character that you're focused on. I think it's got a really cool look to it. So I disagree with the cinematography being considered lazy or whatever we just read in this article. I just don't think that's true. I think there's some unusual techniques being used, but I don't think it's lazy.
I think that they're actually trying to be like innovative and you
Yeah,
know.
I think so. Anyway, so moving on, let's talk about the episode. What do you got for me, Takeerah? Because I know you got notes, girl.
I do. I was just jotting a couple things, random things down here and there. So I guess I kind of put the more important stuff that could be important at the top. One was going back a couple episodes to Danvers and her behavior towards her daughter and her culture. The video, did she watch that video before or after she yelled at her daughter about still having the makeup, tribal makeup on her face?
I don't know.
Because the same tribal makeup that her daughter was wearing, that's the same way that her name is escaping me, but
Annie.
the Annie looked in the video.
Hmm.
And so I'm thinking maybe it's just making her, it's just, like giving her cringe to see that after she's repeatedly watching this video over and over and over again.
I could see that. I would like them to explore that more because I think her just being a bad person for the sake of her being a bad person is really lazy writing.
Mhm.
So I hope that we do get into some area where we find out more. But continue to hear, and we'll come back to the other
Well,
thing I want to mention.
a little bit on that. She when she was in the car with why can't I remember names tonight? On a side note, I was told it's a sign of early menopause.
Oh no, the changes are coming. Oh no.
So I keep wanting to call her Eve because I know her name is like Evangeline. Evangeline, yeah.
Mhm.
And I just keep wanting to shorten it. When she was in the truck with Evangeline and they were kind of having like the serious conversation about prayer, I wrote down a couple things like they had like flipped the sides of the coin when it came to prayer because Evangeline was kind of doubting the prayer
Mhm.
this week, and then Liz is looking at her like, what's your problem? Like you pray, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what you do. You know what I mean? Like that's your belief. What's your problem? So I did like that. But also she told the story about why she doesn't believe in prayer, and I think
Mhm.
it gave us a huge insight into, like, her attitude and everything just about
Well, I
life,
agree.
period.
I mean, we got so much about her character in this episode. I feel like in such little scenes because you get
Mhm.
that piece that her mother died of cancer when she was young. She prayed endlessly, so much that her knees are bruised and she cannot walk for the funeral. That's how hard she prayed for her mom to live, and her mom didn't. Navarro teases her by saying, "You didn't pray hard enough," which I found to be a real true moment of like camaraderie, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then we also so so Danvers has lost a child,
Mhm.
which we've known, but I think it was harder to like piece together what happened. But she lost a child, her husband, she lost her mother when she was young. She's really struggled through life to see the good that's out there, right? The good that's
Yeah.
out there. And I think that gives us insight into the kind of person that she is and why she is
Mhm.
the way that she is. I still think it's lazy writing if we don't get
More yeah.
I need more. I need more.
Um, she did I wrote that we saw some actual, like, true emotion from her when Evangeline started talking about, like, well, now the curse is passed down to her, and,
Mhm.
I mean, she was getting, like, slightly panicky and pissed off.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Okay, so she's a human being."
She is. She is. And I think she feels for Navarro in that way and worries
Mhm.
about her. And I think that's why she pulled her off of duty. We found out in this episode that the reason that she was pulled is because Danvers Danvers is sure that Navarro saw something when they're at the house of the guy for the domestic abuse case. So the story that they tell is that Danvers and Navarro go, and there's this guy and he beats on his girlfriend over and over and over again. And they go and he's killed himself and the girl is dead. But we keep getting these flashbacks that that's not what happened. He is alive. He's singing Twist and Shout, which again, Danvers' child was also singing that song. So we're getting two reasons as to why she really dislikes hearing this song. And at first we see that he's still alive, and that's kind of where the scene cuts, and you're like, oh, okay, so they killed him. Obviously.
Right. Does that song have a lot more significance than we're realizing?
Potentially. Potentially. And then this scene that we got, this newer one, Navarro is clearly looking off towards the dead body, but like above it, above where it is. And it's a horrifying flash to the woman who was killed naked, shrieking with like horrifically like dead glazed over eyes, pointing at the guy who killed her. We saw the same thing when Julia was in the mental facility in the lighthouse. She sees an orange. It's rolled out from under the bed. She looks under it, which was terrifying. I was literally just like, oh God, it's gonna the
Yeah.
jump scare, which I hate. And you see their mother doing the same thing. And we saw it earlier in the season as well. We've seen it a couple times now. I do not like the sound that they play when they show this. Is horrible to me. Is absolutely horrible. It reminds me of the sting from Fear the Walking Dead.
Oh.
So in the early seasons of Fear the Walking Dead, which was on AMC, their intro was like just a sting. Like it wasn't, there was no theme song or anything. It was very weird. And it was it was horrible. It was like I cannot describe. I'm not even going to try to do it. I do it all the time.
No,
On Walking
yeah.
Dead. I'm not going to do it here. It's horrible, and it is very much what that sound reminds me of. I don't like it. It makes like my whole body tighten up. I dislike it very much. Anyway, continue because I'm sure you have more stuff on your list.
Okay. Also, when we saw some emotion from her is when she found Eve's sister half naked walking down the road.
Yeah.
So many things. I just knew, like, I put it's all downhill from here. Like,
yeah.
So many things. Okay, first of all, for those of you that want to know what I'm talking about, Liz finds Eve's sister walking in like a bra.
It's like the middle of an intersection.
Yeah, middle of the intersection, just a bra and like maybe some leggings on or something like that. Like clearly not in her right mind. So she was like in the middle of doing something important actually, and she just stopped and jumped out the car and called Navarro. Which prompted her to finally put her in a facility. And listen, like literally just today, I was in 2 different psych wards because of my job. It doesn't matter if it's a locked facility, if it's a voluntary facility, if it's whatever. You address patients as they enter and exit the building.
Yeah, no, that was garbage that the guy was like, I don't know, we'll check her room. And she's like, she's not here.
It made me so mad.
Yeah.
Because I deal with these types of people every single day, and it's our job to help them. And stuff like that literally happens. How do we get phone calls that say such and such just ran out of the building? What do you mean?
Yeah. It's yeah, I was worried about her in that moment because I didn't want her to like hurt that guy because he could have pressed charges, but she had every right to be that angry. I mean, it was baffling to me how that had happened. And the way that he was trying to handle it, which I get, he was like, he didn't know what was happening because she didn't just come out and say it, but still.
Like, because you're a voluntary facility, you don't do rounds, you don't do head checks, you don't
I know.
do a sign in, sign out book, you don't do
I know.
anything.
The rounds is the most shocking part. She had to have been gone for a little while, like long enough that someone should have done a round.
Yeah, because when she was talking to her on the phone, she already wasn't there.
Yeah.
So she was gone all that time and nobody noticed that this girl is not in the building.
Yeah. And she had to be found by the Coast Guard.
It's just infuriating.
Now, it does make more sense as to why she kept going to that one spot to sit. She clearly had been called to this place on numerous occasions.
Why did she get more and more and more naked?
I don't know.
That is, I just keep trying to understand that part of it, and I guess I just never will, because why?
Mental
Girl,
health.
it's
You
cold.
just never know. You just
Cold.
never know. All right. You got anything else on your list?
Let me double check. I had little random stuff, like I wrote independent pre-forensic evaluation.
I loved that. I loved that language. It was so funny because she's like, they were not, they didn't freeze to death. How do you know? I conducted my own. It was very funny. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that piece.
I mean, yeah, I was crying. Like, what?
It was pretty funny. It was
He
pretty
said,
funny.
I don't even want to know what that means.
This is not a thing. It's not a thing. Not a thing. Again, this is just like found. These people are not good at their jobs.
Right.
Like, if you're trying to build a case against someone, a criminal, to convict them, these are not the things that you do. This is the opposite of things that you do. I can't. Okay, I did want to talk about bad CGI.
Okay.
The polar bear.
Oh my God. I forgot I wrote down some stuff about that polar bear.
The polar bear. Okay,
Yeah.
now I do want to bring up something that was brought up on the podcast. This was maybe the one little bit of insight that I received out of the podcast in terms of like this episode specifically. So they talk about the one-eyed polar bear. So the polar bear has one eye. The polar bear is the link to Danvers' deceased child because he or she, I don't know if we know the gender yet. I think it was a son. A son. He had a stuffed polar bear. Now, they play a game where they cover one of their eyes. This is what Issa Lopez said, so this was kind of interesting. So they play a game where one of their eyes is covered, which is why this is a one-eyed polar bear that we're seeing, that Danvers keeps seeing, because it's a connection to her son. The reason that the eye is covered is because Issa Lopez was trying to sell the idea that you don't always see the full picture of everything. It's a bit ham-fisted for my liking, but I get what they're going for. Now, that one-eyed polar bear, I'm not saying it's as bad as the deer from The Walking Dead, but considering the disparity in time, okay, because we got the bad deer back in what? 2016? 2017? Yeah, was it sixth season? Sixth or seventh?
Was it that late in the series?
Anyway, 26, 20, 20, 26. 16, 16, 17, somewhere around there. To now, okay, 2024. That deer was atrocious back then. Okay? This polar bear is atrocious now. It doesn't look good. It looks like the Coca-Cola bear,
It does.
like, lost his eye. It's not good.
Yeah. Um, so I guess this isn't possible, but Richie keeps feeling like um let me get his name. Sorry. Pryor
Peter or
is
Hank?
um the son
Peter. Okay.
is Liz's son. Like just in the way she treats him and the way he is just constantly
But I don't think she's been in Ennis that long.
oh, okay.
She would have to have been in Ennis for like 18 years.
Mhm.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I'm always confused about time
I
with this
think
show.
I think she might view him as like a surrogate child for the child that she lost, because maybe he's around the same age.
I was gonna ask how old is her
But
son supposed to be?
but her disdain for Kayla is weird.
Mhm.
It's weird. And this is the part of Liz that I need more information about. Like, why do you feel this way against the tribe? Like, why is there so much disdain for their actions? I don't understand. You haven't lived here your whole life. You haven't lived here long enough, I feel like, to have developed such a strong dislike for an entire group of people.
That's true, and I think that's why I felt like she had been there forever because she has an attitude with everybody for what?
I don't know. I don't know. So I really want more insight on that specific portion of it, because it's really bothersome to me. Now, do I think that Kayla is the worst? Yes.
I'm so sorry.
I don't like Kayla. I do not like her. I think that I understand that she has like I understand that she has expectations out of her husband. That is fine. But you did marry a cop.
See, when he said that to her, she said, "No, I didn't. I don't think he was a cop yet."
It doesn't matter. You married him, and if that was what you knew that you were going to sign on for, do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
if that's what he wanted to do, and his dad was a cop, and he was saying like, "This is what I want to follow into." I'm not going to mention who this is, but I know someone whose dream it was to be in the military, and they married someone who told them, "You are not going into the military," and they didn't go. And I just feel like that's so unfair, having known that at the beginning of the marriage, and like you married that person going into it knowing that that was what he wanted to do, that was his dream, to then
Mhm.
tell him he cannot have that dream anymore because now you're a part of his life, and so it's either you or that, is ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, if you want to quit your job and do something else, tell me. Tell me and we'll talk about it.
Yep.
Because he's let me do the same thing. And like, you should be that supportive in your relationship. You know how it is. You go through hard times, sure, because you guys have had to go through that. But Richie got his degree now and he's done, and he can, work in that field. And that was the dream that you guys both agreed that he would follow. And
Mhm.
did it suck for a while? Yeah. But like, that's what you guys agreed on. And you agreed now that you're going to go back to school for, the psychology degree, and he is supporting you in that. You know what I mean? He's not telling you
Mhm.
like, nope, can't do that. Can't be mom and wife and go to school. You can do it all. And I'm
And
not saying like,
podcast and
like
blog.
I know. I'm saying like he should prioritize better and put his foot down a little bit more. But I just think it's a really unrealistic expectation for her to have out of him.
Mhm.
It's okay to like give the reminder, like, hey, try and say something, put your foot down, stand up for
Yeah.
yourself. It's different to show someone support in that, like, stand up for yourself, like, this is what's best for our family,
Mhm.
to have those conversations instead of to just, like, ice him out
Mhm.
and say, like, it's either this or nothing.
Like, we need some from both sides. We need him to, like, stick to his no when he says no to her, and
Mm.
we need her to leave him the hell alone sometimes.
Just ease up
Yeah.
because you're not gonna convince him by doing that, right?
Right.
It's like trying to convince someone of your idea and your ideologies of politics or religion when you know that they're just as invested. It's like yelling at them to get them to change sides. They're not gonna change sides if you're just yelling at them.
Mhm.
You can't sell your side if that's all you're doing. So, this is a really good example of that kind of behavior.
Definitely.
So, don't love her. Didn't realize I wasn't gonna like her. She's hardly been on screen. Sorry, Kayla. Just not feeling you. But I think there's something to be said about, like, almost nobody in the show is likable. Almost nobody?
Almost, yeah.
Almost nobody. Now, I think Navarro is likable. I think she's self-sabotaging, so there's a difference.
Mhm.
She does make mistakes that I don't love. Her going after those guys to get in that fight because she just needed to feel something was a lot. Was a lot.
They
And
could have killed her.
I know. And I will say it, Kavik, dude, Kavik for life. Kavik's the best. I love that guy. You're telling me there's no likable characters? Have you seen Kavik?
Right. Yeah.
He's likable as hell. He bought her SpongeBob toothpaste to go with the toothbrush that she stole from him.
Soul.
So cute. I love it. And he really does care for her and love her. And he wants her to know that she's not alone. There's something really beautiful about that. But other than that, a lot of these characters are kind of like, they're written to be like, oh, I don't really like them. Like Hank's a jerk, and the police chief or captain or whatever is a jerk, and Danvers is a jerk. And,
Mhm.
you know, it's like a lot of the characters are written to be not very likable. But I
Mhm.
disagree that there's no one likable, because that is what
Right.
there are likable people in it.
I mean, I immediately liked Evangeline.
Mm-hmm. But again, some of that is realism, right? Like, think about the people you interact with in your life.
Mhm.
How many people, like, they make mistakes, they do stupid stuff, they cheat on their spouses, they lie to people, they have drinking problems, they're addicted to things. Like, all of these things exist in real life, and if you look hard enough at anyone's life, they're like that.
Mhm.
People generally pretty much suck. Really and truly, like deep down. Not great. We saw it during COVID, and I'm sure we'll see it again.
Earth is ghetto, y'all.
Yeah, it's true. It's pretty ratchet here. Yeah, I can't wait to leave this place. I'm my grandmother now. Lord, take me now. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Because otherwise, I'm just going to tell everybody you might not see me next week. You just never know. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll be dead. Well, you know, it's what
Oh
grandmas
my
say.
god. Oh, okay. Yes, I knew there was at least one thing because I touched on everything else. Okay, maybe two things, and I'm gonna say
Okay.
So I just want to say the whole he's hiding in the night country. We're all in the night country now. I'm like, dude, don't tell me where I am. Okay, I'm not in no night country.
Y'all are in the night country.
Y'all are in the night country.
I'm just in my room watching this on my TV. I ain't in the night country. My head is
I
not
just
there.
No, not at all. No. I just wanted to say it was fantastic seeing Zoe Deschanel on the show this week.
What?
You didn't see the little clip of Elf that the
Oh, yeah. It played in two different spots, and it was the same scene.
Wait, was it really?
It was in two different spots, yeah, and it was the same, yeah, because Danvers was watching it, and then Hank Pryor was watching it.
Yeah.
Because I thought it wasn't Danvers, was it? I don't remember who else it was, but two people were watching it. And I thought that was really unusual. But yeah, it was the same scene in both. It's the scene where Buddy the Elf is in for some reason in the department store they have showers. They have locker rooms for their staff. And so Zoe is just taking a shower in the morning after she got to work, and Buddy the Elf is hiding in there and they sing together. It was interesting, to say the least. And with that,
Yep, that's all I got.
yeah, we're gonna end this show with a Evangeline, and and you might not see me next week. Never know when the Lord is gonna take me.
Apparently, the Lord's gonna take us.
Never know. Anyway, don't be living in that night country. You know what I'm saying? We'll see y'all. It's like when the Whisperers started talking and you were like, are zombies talking now? All right. All right, everybody. Good night. Thank you for watching. If you are watching, please go ahead and like this video. Subscribe to this channel. I don't know. We do other stuff. This one's been a little meh. But we'll cover other things. It only gets better from here, I guess, right? I don't know. Maybe, supposedly. We'll see. Anyway, we love you, and it's been real, and I've been joined by Connie Dixon for life. I forgot to say her name. It's down in the description below. Just take a look in that box. A lot of information down there, so take a look there. And we will detect some more things next week. Same time, same place, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesdays.